For decades, the US military tried to redesign the devastating 12-gauge shotgun into a mid-range assault role that it was never meant to be. Millions were spent to chase experimental ammunitions to extend its range, and they were fighting a losing battle against physics. But everything started to change when the military finally embraced the fact that shotgun is a close-range king. This all started in a World War I legal showdown. In 1918, Germany formally protested American trench guns were too devastating, claiming they caused unnecessary suffering under the Hague Convention. The US JAG countered with a landmark defense that lethality is not a crime. They argued that because a shotgun stops a threat instantly, its wounds are a byproduct of military efficiency, not gratuitous cruelty. Furthermore, they proved buckshot wasn't an expanding bullet, but a series of solid, lawful projectiles. Later, that 1918 ruling created a permanent legal shield, and reaffirmed as recently as 1997, that ensured the shotgun would never be banned from the US arsenal. With its legality settled, the only question left was how to use it. Back in Vietnam, the search for firepower became desperate. The military skipped slow development and fielded anything that worked. But as the body count rose, a new question emerged. What if the problem wasn't just firepower, but the speed at which you could saturate the jungle? So, the military went back to the drawing board for a new experiment that led to the Remington 7188. Navy SEALs wanted overwhelming firepower for ambush situations. Remington took their Model 1100 gas-operated shotgun and made it fully automatic. There were 6 variants, but the Mark I version was the most common. The cyclic rate hit 480 rounds per minute, which sounds incredible until you actually try to fire it. The recoil was uncontrollable. Soldiers couldn't keep it on target. They added a duckbill choke to spread the shot horizontally like a wall of lead, but that didn't help enough. The weapon fouled constantly in jungle conditions, and the Navy pulled it after realizing that lethality without controllability is completely useless. Basically, the duckbill spreader choke attempted to create a horizontal wall of lead, but the weapon's fragility and tendency to foul in the jungle environment led to its withdrawal. This failure established a critical lesson that lethality without controllability is a liability in a weapon design, and it's a lesson that would be somehow ignored and relearned again during the CAWS program 2 decades later. But before the CAWS program, it was the Project Rhino. Carol Childers was an engineer at the Naval Surface Warfare Center who thought pump shotguns were romantic garbage. In 1969, he started designing the Special Operations Weapon, aka SOW. Basically, it was a machine gun that fired shot shells. Childers' design philosophy used a blow-forward action where the barrel moved forward to cycle the round, and the capacity jumped to 20 rounds in a detachable box magazine, which was 5 times more than the Ithaca or Stevens. The prototype had no stock, just dual pistol grips attached, and it was designed for hip firing to break contact during jungle ambushes. During this program, the Pentagon actually had some naming rejection, but ultimately it was the ammunition problem that killed everything. So the Rhino program expanded into a joint service requirement that demanded 10-round capacity and exotic munitions like high-explosive slugs, tear gas, and flares. And the program also mandated ammunition incompatibility, meaning military rounds couldn't fit in civilian chambers and civilian rounds couldn't function in military weapons. This requirement seemed sound and logical, but it created a logistical nightmare that would haunt military shotgun programs for 2 decades. Military planners wanted a shotgun that could penetrate body armor and mild steel at 150 meters. They want regular buckshot to max out around 40 meters. And so they came up with this idea of shooting flechettes, which are small steel darts. The goal was to create a weapon with higher hit probability than an M16 but effective range 3 times longer than a normal shotgun. So millions of dollars flooded into the program and major defense contractors all competed, and these were some of the design submissions. H&K CAWS. This is a bullpup design with a floating barrel system. The barrel recoils inside the polymer chassis to handle the massive pressure of the proprietary 19.5mm ammunition. They added an integrated reflex sight in the carry handle, which was 20 years ahead of its time. The tungsten buckshot could penetrate mild steel plate at 150 meters during testing. But the problem was still the ammunition, because brass cases were belted to prevent insertion into civilian guns. This meant soldiers couldn't scavenge standard 12-gauge shells in the field. The entire weapon system depended on a supply chain for proprietary ammunition that didn't exist yet. And the next one was from AAI Corporation. This one feels like a beefed-up M16 to minimize training time. They used standard 12-gauge diameter, but lengthened the shell to prevent chambering in commercial guns. The ammo design consisted of 8 flechettes that each weighs 1 gram, and the company claimed 450 rounds per minute with recoil similar to an M16 due to an inline stock and advanced buffer system. However, flechettes were ballistically unstable in flight and they tumbled, and it was basically useless, and it can't even fly straight, let alone being accurate. The next submission was the Pancore Jackhammer. This one achieved legendary status in video games despite failing completely in reality. Designer John Anderson created a rotating cassette magazine that doubled as the cylinder. The barrel moved forward to cycle the action. 2 prototypes were destroyed during durability testing at HP White Labs, and the weapon was mechanically complex and difficult to reload. But Pancore ran out of money before they could fix the problems, and also, the DoD requirement for specialty ammunition also handicapped them since they designed the gun around standard shells. However, these were such a bad idea because flechettes were ballistically unstable and also super expensive to manufacture. In addition, they lacked stopping power compared to buckshot at close range, despite costing 5 times more. The proprietary ammunition requirement created a logistical nightmare, and a shotgun that can't scavenge standard ammo became a liability instead of an asset. So in the 80s, the CAWS program was scrapped and the military immediately moved on to another, and it's called the Joint Service Combat Shotgun. And during this time, the US Marines led the JSCS program in the late 1990s, and they wanted a commercial off-the-shelf semi-automatic shotgun to replace those aging pump-action Mossberg 500s and Remington 870s. And the new requirements for the program was much simpler. The JSCS solicitation dropped the 150-meter requirement, no messing with developing a new ammo type. And now, instead they demanded modularity with Picatinny rails for optics and lights. The weapon had to fire 25,000 rounds without major failure. Most importantly, it had to cycle low recoil tactical loads and full-power 3-inch magnums interchangeably. Later, Benelli submitted the M4 Super 90, and Mossberg entered the Model 9200A1, and Remington brought a variant of the 1187. During testing, Mossberg's gas system couldn't handle the pressure variance between light and heavy loads, and Remington's entry had similar problems with reliability under extreme conditions. So the military went with the Benelli Super 90, because the auto-regulating gas-operated system called the Argo, which functions like a self-cleaning and self-regulating mechanism that lets the shotgun to function reliably under conditions that choked its competitors. And the weapon was designated the M1014, and the Marines ordered 20,000 units. However, it costs about $1,800 apiece to the government, and Congress initially redirected funds intended for shotgun procurement into broader programs. But the Marine Corps argued successfully that semi-automatic capability was essential for speed, and that the Argo system reduced long-term maintenance costs compared to pump guns that broke constantly. Now moving on to the next program, the M26 MAS. The urban combat in Mogadishu and the Balkans emphasized door breaching, and the existing solution was the Knight's Armament Master Key, which was a shortened Remington 870 mounted under an M4. It was heavy, awkward to pump, and held only 4 rounds total, so they wanted something more modular, and they turned to Seymour Systems and Vertu Corporation to come up with a new design. Upon the military's request, they developed the M26 modular accessory shotgun system that allowed the user to cycle the weapon with the support hand without the violent pumping motion that disrupted the rifle's sight picture. It can also be detached from the rifle and accept a stock and pistol grip for standalone use. It fed from a 3 or 5 round detachable box magazine, which sped up reloads significantly compared to tube-fed guns. The military bought over 9,000 units, but infantry soldiers complained constantly because mounting a 3.5-pound shotgun to the front of a 7-pound rifle created a front-heavy, unwieldy weapon system. Soldiers in Afghanistan said the added weight wasn't worth the burden, and they rather carry a separate lightweight standalone shotgun instead. But there is a better option coming from Remington. Remington 870 MCS. While the Army struggled with the MAS program and the Marines got their Benelli, and the Air Force went with the Remington 870. The MCS isn't a single gun. It's actually a kit centered on a common receiver, so users can rapidly reconfigure the weapon from a 10-inch breacher with pistol grip, only to a 14-inch CQB weapon or an 18-inch patrol shotgun with full stock. This prioritized logistical flexibility over the semi-automatic rate of fire offered by the Benelli, and in 2019 the Air Force solicited sole source contracts for the MCS to standardize its security forces inventory. The best part was that the modularity reduced the number of different weapon systems they needed to maintain. While the US shotgun military program didn't go as rampant as some of the rifle programs, there were some crazy designs that never made it, and one of them being the AA-12. This is a magazine-fed full-auto shotgun with an insane cult following online. It looked great in movies, but despite its recoil-mitigating engineering, it has never been adopted by the US military. It answers a question the military isn't asking. For area suppression, the belt-fed M249 SAW or the Mark 19 grenade launcher are way superior to get the job done. And the AA-12 is too heavy for breaching and lacks range for open warfare. It remains a solution looking for a problem. And there is one more, with a modern AR-style feeding design. The future of military shotguns likely lies in the Genesis Gen 12. Unlike previous attempts to force a shotgun onto a rifle or build a sci-fi bullpup, the Gen 12 is a shotgun built on the standard AR-10 pattern. It uses the same manual of arms as the M4 carbine. Same safety, same mag release, same bolt catch. This drastically reduces training time. The weapon is currently under evaluation by specialized units and has seen limited use. Its ability to feed reliably from box magazines solves the primary weakness of the Benelli M1014, which takes time to load one shell at a time, assuming the user isn't clumsy under stress.